Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first Dialogues Voices from Performance event of the 2021-2022 academic year. We're very excited to have all of you here with us today. I would like to begin this event with a land acknowledgement, acknowledging the land where we're at here at Central. Central Washington University honors the Native people and land on which CWU is located in Kittitas County. It is the historic home of the Yakima people. The federally recognized Confederated tribes and bands of the Yakima Nation is made of the Klickitat, the Powlis, Walla Walla, Wanapum, Wenatchee, Wishram, and Yakima people. The Yakima people remain committed stewards of this land, cherishing it and protecting it as instructed by elders through generations. We are honored and grateful to be here today on their traditional lands. We give thanks to the legacy of the original people, their lives, and their descendants. For those who are joining us for the first time, thank you, welcome. But Dialogues, Voices from Performance is a colloquium series which seeks to highlight the work of artists, scholars, and activists of the global majority in the fields of theater, dance, and performance studies. This series is supported by the Lynn Thayer Grant, the Department of Theater, and the Ghostlight Project. And today we welcome interdisciplinary artist and scholar, Dr. Diana Alvarez. Doctora Chingona's ancestors bloom in their voice. Her songs roar an otherworldly fire against oppression, exalt queer love and liberation, and create a gripping atmosphere for healing. An expansive multimedia artist and educator, Doctora Chingona's music, poetry, performances, films, and gatherings center transcendence, kinship, and the co-liberation and nourishment of queer and trans artists of color. Doctora Chingona is the composer behind the award-winning performance Quiero Volver, a Chicana X ritual opera, and the co-founder of the Bridge Song Fund, an emergency relief program for Western Massachusetts musicians. Her debut album, Ser Artista, produced by Seth Glyer, is slated for release in the fall of 2021. Dr. Alvarez, thank you for joining us this morning.
It's my pleasure to be here. I so appreciate hearing what this series is about, and I love what you have curated, and thank you for the honor of being present with you today. I always like to begin any kind of scholarly talk, workshop, or course with music. Multisensory performance, multisensory engagement is the way that I interact with the world. It's the way that we all interact with the world, though we have some mythological understandings of how we approach knowledge. So I'm going to start with the song, and what I will be doing is interweaving story and some prompts throughout this musical performance, and then we will also have time for some Q&A at the end.
Es inútil tu manera de atravesar mis fronteras. Soy humo, soy fuego de tierra que no puedes sujetar. Tus palabras traicioneras son oraciones de odio. Mi gente repleta de sueños no deja de luchar para la historia, para la historia. Esta es la revolución. Cuando cantes tus canciones, generales y de libertad. Recuerda las soldaderas hermanas que no puedes borrar para la historia, para la historia. Esta es la revolución. Las soldaderas, las peleoneras, esta es la revolución.
That is Para la Historia, a song that I wrote initially to honor the soldaderas, or as they are known, the Adelitas of the Mexican Revolution. I learned about this history of fierce Mexican women and genderqueer people who were gender bending and who were fighting in a war. Later, I didn't learn this in school, but I learned about this history and it really astonished me. I am Chicanx, a genderqueer Chicanx human, and when I learned of this history, I just felt so connected to it, and I wanted to write a song to honor them. And this was the first song that I wrote for my multisensory multimedia performance, Quiero Volver, a Chicanx ritual opera. Quiero Volver is a living performance altar for queer and trans artists of color to convene and to manifest futures. So what I'm really concerned with in my work is building chosen family, is building gathering spaces, building places for us to archive ourselves, and to have a history that is not limited to blood history. Because as we know in our current world, with grief, with death, with loss, we are likely to lose so much, and so building chosen family is really crucial. So Para la Historia is a song about that started from thinking about the Adelitas of the Mexican Revolution, but then it ended up being about the fighters for liberation, any person who throughout history who has worked toward liberation for people and all beings on this planet and the sustenance of this planet. So the first thing I want to reflect on is, who are your icons? For me, I have queer icons, or I have people who have influenced my work greatly. Gloria Anzaldúa, Audre Lorde, Cherie Moraga, James Baldwin. I can name so many more, and descendants of those thinkers and writers and artists. And the question with Para la Historia is, how do we honor the people in our lineage, the people that we have learned from, whether it is through a song or documenting their work, writing about their work, inviting them to perform somewhere. How do we give space? How do we hold space for the people in our lineage? I'm going to keep moving forward. I have an a cappella song that I usually start my sets with, or I start workshops with, but I'm going to introduce it to you now. When we're talking about multisensory performance, we're talking about the body, and it is certainly we have a dominant narrative that our innovation and our thought is supreme, and that our mind is supreme. But the truth is that we cannot function, we cannot create things, we cannot write innovative research if we're not taking care of the body that houses us, or if our body is not taken care of. So I like to think about with multisensory performance, how do we open the space? How do we ground people in their bodies as they enter a space with us to transform, to learn, to create? And for me, this song is my artistic manifesto in some ways. And I imagine it will transform over time. But it's a song that I offer to you in honor of your artistry. And I hope that it, as I continue to sing music, I hope that this can help to ground you in your physical presence and understand and be present with your body as a whole, which is how you create and how you innovate. This is Ser Artista.
Ser artista es dudar las maquinaciones de este mundo. Ser artista es construir contradicciones para vivir.
To be an artist is to doubt the machinations of this world. To be an artist is to construct contradictions in order to live. To be an artist is to have a nest of iron in your chest when you don't find your people. To be an artist is to make food out of words, movements of the body, temples of the voice. Your voice, tu voz, is the ultimate poem. Poem of being. Poema.
Para vivir, ser artista es tener un nido de fierro adentro del pecho cuando no hayas tu gente. Ser artista es hacer comida de palabras, movimientos del cuerpo, templos de la voz. Tu voz es el último poema, poema de ser, poema.
That is Ser Artista. I wonder, as a prompt for you, what is your artistic manifesto? What do you think the value of art is? What does it mean to you? How do you create? Do you want to create? I believe in the infinite power of art and creativity. I believe that it is the way that we envision and map out the world that we want to see. And so that song is my offering to you. I hope that you today will write a sentence that captures your day, that documents your day in some way, or you take a photo, you hum a melody, you do something that speaks to that sort of unnamed essence in you, that creative essence in you. I'm going to move forward to a song called Orphan's Heart, Orphan's Will. This is a song that is one of the first songs in Quiero Volver, a Chicanx ritual opera. But before I do that, I'm going to be generous and tune my guitar. Give me 1 second. This is Orphan's Heart, Orphan's Will.
I've had a sinkhole in the gut ever since my mama flew away, flew away. Ever since there's an ocean in my throat, I have an orphan's heart, orphan's will that pulls me toward your eyes, your eyes. Even though I know you'll go too. I've had trouble being hungry on a road I cannot name, and trouble asking for what will not satisfy. I've had trouble being sloppy, secondary, not what I deserve. I must be who I need to be, so I can build this whole family. I don't see who I need to see, so I will build this whole family. Oh, mis santos son Giorgio, María, Irene y la sirena linda, linda. Santos que florecen mi cantar. Aquí llevo una familia grande y hermosa adentro, adentro. Así es que mi cuerpo es su hogar. Pero pulsos, pasos, ojos, tu guitarra bien amada son signos que tocar. Es el lenguaje del amor. Yo quiero alimentarme hasta que me siento llena, aunque todo acabará. I must be who I need to be, so I can build this whole family. I don't see who I need to see, so I will build this whole family. Oh, I have an orphan's heart, orphan's will that pulls me toward your eyes, oh, your eyes.
That was Orphan's Heart, Orphan's Will. This is a song where I speak about ancestors in my work, people that have passed, people that raised me, people that mentored me, and I name in the second verse all of my loved ones who have died. And I work in the tradition of the Chicana feminist altar building practice. And in this practice, a stage, table, any place you are can be an altar. And an altar is a space of honoring many times, but also it's a place of attention. I worked with groundbreaking composer Pauline Oliveros, and I studied deep listening with her. If you're interested in learning deep listening meditation or deep listening as a practice and as a study, um, Pauline created an institute for deep listening, which became part of Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, where I completed my doctorate. And in working with Pauline, I learned about how to distinguish different sounds based on their sonic quality and to bring my attention to my sonic environment at all times. And then I also worked on text-based composition. But the conclusion I really came to in my own work as I was centering the lives and the work, the artistry of queer and trans artists of color was that to build an altar is to build a place of attention. And where we give our attention is a political act. Who we choose to listen to is a political act. So in my education, I found so few people who identified as queer and trans artists of color in talks in syllabi. So what I wanted to do was to just be upfront and just center our work and just create a space where we could convene. And that's kind of the origin of why I decided to create Quiero Volver, and then and also my accompanying research with the opera. So that song, because it has to do with building a space of honoring, building a space of attention, I'd like to ask you, and these questions that I'm offering, there are things that you can offer, that you can respond to in your own time. There are things that you can respond to in any medium. You could document something with a video. You could write something down. You could just think about it. But the question I have for this song is really, what is it? What are you called to bring your attention to? I think that we often talk about purpose and what it is we're called to do for a profession, but really, what is it that you feel called to bring your attention to and to maybe to support others in giving their attention to this as well? When I was deciding on my research for my doctoral program, I thought very practically about, I'm going to be stuck with this research for a long time. And really in it, I have to really care about this. And the thing that I thought that I could do the rest of my life and be fulfilled doing was building family, building community for queer and trans artists of color for my community. So that is, that's my story. What's yours? I'm going to keep moving forward. This is a song you might have guessed. I have mentioned a few times the loss of family, but I lost my birth mother very young. Death has been a part of my life since the age of 7 for a very long time. And at this point in my life, I am motherless times 3. I've also lost the people who raised me in place of my birth mother. And so my songs often approach, and my performances often approach death and the fertile ground that accompanies death. And so this song is about my grandfather, whose name was Charlie. He was an Indigenous and Irish man who loved music, who raised me as his own child. We weren't blood kin, but he and actually I think that taught me a lot about the fact that you don't need to be related by blood to love and to have family. And the reason the song is important is that I held my grandfather through death. He died of mesothelioma cancer after being exploited for many years as a laborer. And I held him through death, and it really melted my world down when that happened. And that was probably the beginning reason that I decided to not waste any more time and to move forward as an artist, to center my work, or to find the ways to center art and songwriting and performance in my work. So this is a song that's it's an origin point for me as an artist. String instruments are so fussy, so I do have to tune. So give me one moment. This is Charlie on a Boat.
In the early crush of violet and red, I met mi abuelo on a boat. My bags were packed, a solo captain. I cried my ache into his arms. Lloré, lloré. His embrace was thick as a mattress, gentle, dapper old man. I asked him why my seas had been rough. He pulled my ache into his arms. Why did I wait to sing my own songs? Why did your end have to teach me? Why do we let our hungry grow weak? Why do our hearts die of thirst? In the early crush of violet and red, I met Charlie on a boat. His embrace was thick as a mattress, gentle, dapper old man. I asked him why my seas had been rough. Mi abuelo me dijo, you had to learn.
All right, that was Charlie on a Boat. Do I have any questions coming in? I don't think I do. I'll just keep moving forward. This is another song from Quiero Volver, a Chicanx spiritual opera.
It should feel delicious, the hottest storm stirring your blood. It should feel meticulously messy, like you'll never, never, never. Ooh, it should feel tender as a moon and wild. So soon it grows without knowing. It's bright beyond the clearing. Unfettered taste, liberation, lover. Can you feel? Can you feel? It should feel like death, just a knock, just a breath, just a beat, beat away. It should feel, it should feel, it should feel. It should feel like prose had never strayed from her mother tongue. It grows without knowing. It's bright beyond the clearing. Unfettered taste, liberation, lover. Can you feel? Can you feel? It grows without knowing. It's bright beyond the clearing. Unfettered taste, liberation. Ooh. You can hear my floors creaking as I move around in here. Oh, thank you all so much. I'm seeing the comments from YouTube. Thank you so much for your feedback. It's always nice when a performer is on a virtual setting or a speaker, performer, instructor, when we get feedback like that. So thank you for giving some life back over here. I really appreciate it. I'm here to connect with you. That's the ultimate goal. So I'm gonna keep moving forward. But along the lines of Liberation Lover, I wrote that song because I didn't have, growing up, I did not have, and we can say many of us don't have healthy representations of love, whether it is familial or romantic, as friendship, love, all of the different forms. And so I wrote a song where I was trying to approach it from the perspective of like, it should feel delicious, it should feel thrilling, it should and not to say that it should always be that way only, but I wanted to approach it from the place of like finding pleasure in love, and we can find that with so many things in our world. And the thing that I wanted to offer you with regard to this song kind of prompting it is to contemplate what brings you joy, what brings you pleasure, what you savor in life, and to document it, to really find a way to capture something. I have a Patreon account as an independent artist, and people sign up to either take private voice lessons with me or workshops or get creative nudges. And one of the things that I posted yesterday to the community that supports me is a creative nudge to document something that is absolutely delicious and pleasurable, and to document it with words, with sound, with music. And it's really lovely to hear what other people experience. And it's in that sharing that we build empathy with one another. So I hope that you will document something for yourself that is absolutely delicious. I have a set list, but I often kind of move around it a bit. I'm going to do a song that was an origin point for me in terms
in terms of creating the opera. Who would you say were your biggest inspirations in your musical journey? Oh, yes. I'd love to talk to you about them. um, I just started watching the Ella Fitzgerald documentary on Netflix. She was one of the first really huge influences musically on me. I loved that she used her voice as an instrument, and she's known for her scatting, but she was so the voice is it's our body that creates sound, and I think it's such a wondrous instrument. So artists that really use their full body when singing, and when it's not just like I'm singing a melody and here are some lyrics, it's like full body. um, and Ella Fitzgerald is one of those people. Leela Downs, Chavela Vargas, um, Pauline Oliveros, my mentor, has really influenced me. There's a Chilean singer-songwriter named Violeta Parra who has really influenced my songwriting. Um, I think 12th century, or I hope I'm not getting it wrong, but 12th century composer Hildegard von Bingen um, has really influenced me. And I'm really attracted to artists whose work feels transcendent in some way, and that goes in any genre. I am from Texas, and I grew up listening to country music. I grew up singing country music. Patsy Cline was really huge as a part of that, as was Hank Williams. Um, so those are some influences, but I'm continually influenced by um, artists who create right now. I'm really fascinated by how we practice or how we don't practice and what gets us started, because I'm in this work myself, so I'm always trying to figure out how to keep myself moving. Thank you for that question. That was for Jackson. Catherine, you wrote that you love the idea of the added layer of how do you savor it and share it. Yes. Yeah. I think we should dig further into the layers of pleasure, right? It's pleasurable, it's exciting, this is delicious, but then I say this because when I am in classrooms with students and, I ask a question about like, what do you find delicious or whatever, something basic that's seemingly basic, that's not really. And we get so much variance, obviously, because so many different bodies, so many different politicized ways of being in the world, so many different experiences. And I think that's how we build empathy, is like learning that, oh, this person experiences this in this way. And that, for me, building empathy is at the heart, somewhere in the core of what I do. It is obviously to build community, but like, why are we building community? It's to heal our planet, to heal our world and ourselves. Okay. I'm going to sing a song that is not my own, but it is like, it is a Mexican standard. If you are familiar with Mexican ranchera music, you'll recognize it. And this was the first song that I was able to play and sing at the same time. And it was like, I felt like I was soaring when I finally was able to do that. And it's a song that I heard many times growing up, and it never really moved me. And then I heard a version of it. I heard a rendition of it that really did move me later in life, and it was Concha Buica who performed it. And so I performed this song as a meditation on grief. It's I also, when I play it live, I'm playing it live now, but when I play it in a room full of people, I listen to the space and I respond to the sounds of the room in order to perform it. So this is Volver, Volver.
Este amor apasionado que anda todo alborotado por volver. Voy camino a la locura y aunque todo me tortura, sé querer. Nos dejamos hace tiempo, pero se llegó el momento de volver. Tú tenías mucha razón, me hace daño al corazón. Y me muero por volver. Y volver, volver, volver a tus brazos otra vez. Llegaría hasta donde estés. Yo sé perder, yo sé perder. Quiero volver, volver, volver. Nos dejamos hace tiempo. A mí se me llegó el momento de volver. Tú tenías mucha razón, me hace daño al corazón y me muero por volver. Y volver, volver, volver a tus brazos otra vez. Yo llegaría hasta donde estés. Yo sé perder, yo sé perder. Quiero volver, volver, That was Volver, Volver. Well, often when I teach voice students, and I try to practice this myself, I work on getting to a space. It's more important for me to get to a space of connection, to somehow transformation, transcendence, being transported in some way into the song, and being connected with the work. We certainly, as artists, we work on our skill. I've worked for many years, since the age of 11. I have sung and performed. And we do work on our skill, our muscle memory. We do need to practice. All of those things are foundational to the work that we do. But I think
at the heart of the work when we're doing multisensory performance, we're trying to connect as a body with other bodies. We have to be in it. It cannot be a rote performance where we're just reading a script or we're not fully in our bodies. And so with that comes the precarious nature of the body, right? So that's where we get the scratches, we get the inconsistencies, the things where it's like, oh my God, I ran out of breath right here. And there we can build as much as we can. What I like to lean on is like my practice. I've practiced this. I've done this many times in my body. So I'm going to trust that my body will be able to somehow approach this song. But I offer that because, I think it's really important to approach art not as trying to complete a finished, beautiful, perfect piece, but to really get involved in the work of practice and going back to a thing. And that's also just decolonizing our approach to art practice as well. Not thinking of it as a commodity that needs to be produced, but sharing and telling a story. So Volver, Volver is an important song to me. It's actually, it's the title for my multimedia performance, Quiero Volver, comes from Quiero Volver, the lyric in that song by Fernando Maldonado. Okay. I'm doing a time check here. Okay, I'm going to keep moving forward. Thank you, Christina. Thank you for your comments, everyone. A few of the songs that I've performed, Charlie on a Boat, this next one, and the next two that I'll perform have been released, so you can listen to them wherever you listen to music online. You can listen on iTunes or Apple Music, or I guess it's Apple Music now, and Spotify, anywhere you listen. And you can also go to my Bandcamp and make a donation as well for those songs. This is Relentless Humanity. You lounge atop your castle of gold. You roll around in your oil so no one will touch you. You rob friends, camouflage the truth. Your greed ain't good for no one. Your greed ain't good for no one, not even you. Lock children up in cages as they wail. You terrorize our families with your guns and your jails. You've built a wall around your heart, want others to follow suit. Your hate ain't good for no one. Your hate ain't good for no one, not even you. Pay up for the lives we've lost. Pay up for the damage you caused. Pay up your reparations to our relentless humanity. Oh, you punch a woman in her mouth por decirte no. You shove a door in my face for being queer. You sign away our rights with a deceitful pen. Your hands ain't good for no one. Your hands ain't good for no one, not even you. Back off your uninvited grabs. Disarm your entitled rage. Fist up for the revolution of our relentless humanity. Oh, we won't let it. We won't let it. We won't let it. We won't let it. We won't let it end this way. We won't let it end this way. My family won't let it end this way. Oh, we will gather up the strength of our ancestors' will. We'll feed and tend to each other until we heal. We'll build a village without walls, guns, or jails. Our hearts were built for building. Our hearts were built for building. Yes, even yours. Rise up with your indignation. Sing out for those who can't. Fist up for the reclamation of our relentless humanity. Oh, we won't let it. We won't let it. We won't let it. We won't let it. We won't let it end this way. We won't let it end this way. My family won't let it end this way. That is a song about empathy, building empathy and family. When I look at the oppressions of our world, in that song, I'm approaching and addressing different forms of oppression in each verse. The thing that I've really found is like, wow, where's our empathy? And I do think that there's I often doubt myself in this, but I feel very stubborn in believing that there is a relentless ability to connect with other people on this planet that we do have, but that we need to teach it, and that we need to practice empathy every day. So one of the things that I do, and I encourage you in your classes, whether you're a student or a professor, or whether you're working as a staff member, there are ways to build empathy and exercises to do this. And I'm speaking from a place of having done it in what feels like the most, I wouldn't say unwelcoming, but maybe the most unlikely place. I went to, I did my postdoc at RPI, and I was teaching a music class that was very much about, like, we're going to talk about the physics of sound. We're going to talk about different world music cultures, and the students in my classes and at RPI were predominantly white, predominantly men, and I really had, in my time teaching at this institution, had learned that that students could use some work when it came to interpersonal skills and with communication. And so I decided it didn't matter what kind of class, it didn't matter how technical the class was. I was going to teach empathy, love, and compassion. We were going to have an empathy round at the end of every class. And I did this for all of my students. I have done it in every classroom since then for the past few years. And initially, there's laughter and it's sort of like, what are we doing? It's uncomfortable. But then, my students have gotten really used to it. And I've seen over the course of multiple semesters when I've had students continue to take classes with me, I've seen an improvement and of course, this is just my own personal anecdotal assessment. But I've seen students who struggled with communication to really open up and learn to speak with one another. And my only rule for the empathy round or the compassion round, whatever you want to call it, is that there's no snark. We're not being sarcastic, and you're really genuinely trying to find a way to empathize, to offer some love, offer some compassion to the person you're speaking with. And so what we do is, when we were in person, we would stand in a circle, and we do it on Zoom as well. And it does work on Zoom. It's a little clunkier as things are, but person will speak to the left or to the right of them. You'll go one at a time. And the point is to speak some authentic, some genuine words of love, empathy, and compassion. It could be that you hope that that person has some really deep rest that evening. You don't have to know the person to wish them a good night's sleep. And so every person does that. I always say, I'm included in this. I need compassion from my students as well. And so that is what I offer to you when thinking about our relentless humanity, thinking about building empathy, building compassion. That song is also about, where we choose to bring our attention. I see some comments, so I'm going to read them. How long have I been making music? I'm going to hold my guitar because it hurts my back. I've been making music since I was 11. And that was when I started taking voice lessons from my music mentor of about 18 or 20 years, I think. My mentor was Linda Flores in Corpus Christi, Texas. She was this very kind of, you think of like geniuses in the world. She was very, very humble about, she's a working musician, but she also built computers, and she played guitar like Santana and like built a recording studio from scratch in a very humble, beautiful home that she had, but she did it like in her garage, but like did all the electrical wiring herself. And she somehow, I found her back in the day. We used to not have the internet to do these things, and there was in Texas, I don't know if it still exists, but it was a thing called the Thrifty Nickel or something like it. It was like a little like ad booklet, and I saw voice lessons in there, and I really wanted to sing. And also Selena had just died in Texas, and so that was very influential. I didn't mention Selena's very influential to me as a singer. Anyway, so I started working with Linda, and she took me under her wing and became a family member, became a parent sibling kind of person, and taught me everything she knew. She was a retired cruise ship singer, and so in many ways, I like learned on the job. I did not go to conservatory, and I did not take like formal voice lessons. What she did, she coached me in her recording studio, and I sang with her for many years. As a teenager, that was my summer job, singing in hotels and honky tonks. And then I would go home and sing with her when I had breaks from college. And she died in my first year of grad school. And so back in Orphan's Heart, Orphan's Will, that song, I name her as one of the ancestors. But I mention her because you've asked how long I've been singing, and I can't even think of that trajectory without mentioning her. Mentors are so important in our lives. And if you're thinking about, multisensory performance for yourself, and you want to create something like this, I highly recommend that you check out the work of maybe the whole lineage. Follow the work of Sharon Bridgeforth, who is my mentor as a writer, who creates absolutely gorgeous experiences in theater, but beyond theater. She works in the theatrical jazz aesthetic. Her wife, Omi Osun Joni L. Jones, wrote a book on theatrical jazz, and often, if you follow her work, she will speak to her lineage and who has influenced her. And so, if you're interested in that world of creating in multiple mediums on the stage, she's a person to look at. And just to describe a little bit more about my work, so Quiero Volver, I told you earlier, it is my own multimedia, multisensory performance. I created it over years, and it's something that I still am seeking funding and trying to bring it into new mediums as a video performance and also as a live performance. I've staged it twice, and this is a performance to where the stage is an altar to queer and trans artists of color, and I ask questions about what have we lost, how do we nourish ourselves, who is our lineage, how do we build family, how do we find our chosen family? These are all questions that are a part of it. So some of the songs you've heard, many of the songs you've heard today are part of that opera. There's also a play script that I wrote that is meant for ensemble performance, and there are some documentary video portraits of multiple queer and trans artists that come in as well. And so they're meant to be like, when you set up an altar, you have icons on it, right? Or you have photos, maybe if you have a family altar. I have a family altar behind me, and I have photos of my family. But you can build an altar as a place of just attention, building, like, I want to give my attention to this. I want to create some honoring for this. It does not have to have a religious or spiritual connection, though often it does. It just depends on what you're creating. But Quiero Volver has those multiple layers in it of practice. And if you're wondering about building your own multisensory performance, I think it's really important to consider the questions of what stories you want to tell and what do you want to invite your witnesses, your audience members, whatever you want to call the participants in the piece. What are you trying to invite them toward? What do you want them to experience? And I think over time, you'll learn what pieces need to go and what pieces need to come in to your work. It is a long process to create a multisensory performance, but it's very fruitful. And I do it because I work and I express myself in multiple mediums, and it feels like a home that I can build for myself to exist in all the ways that I do. Okay, I'm looking at your questions. Techniques or exercises to use in bringing empathy and compassion to the classroom. So the compassion round that I described earlier is what I do, empathy and compassion round. I teach a course called Arts and Activism. And it used to have a very long title. As we learn in academia, we always start long, and then I just crunched it down. But it was about the whole purpose is like, how do we translate social justice thought or anti-oppression thought into our artistic practice? How do we actually create work that is responding to the world? So I titled it Arts and Activism because it is about activist art and how we do that, how we build that in ourselves. I have a whole section in my course on love, empathy, and compassion. And in that section, my students learn about concepts of love from different global viewpoints, perspectives. So we get out of the U.S. centered or even colonized approach to what love is, and we think about it beyond romantic love, beyond what's portrayed in mainstream media. And in that section of the course, I have exercises on love. So we have a gratitude practice. We write gratitude lists. We create performance poems from the lists that we create. One thing, a good exercise that I find really helpful is you can, whatever free write you prompt that you have in a classroom or a space, a workshop, you might ask everybody, let's create a gratitude list together, and write as many different things down as possible. You want as much text as possible to use multisensory language, use language of the senses that makes you think of sight, smell, sound, touch. And once students have their lists, you can direct in the way that we would like, the way a composer would or a composer or a conductor would conduct. You can together, with the text that you have, improvise from that text and create a piece where students are interweaving their voices with one another, and also writing and revising as they go. It does take time to build that comfort and that ease with improvisation, but that's one thing that I do. And it is tied to empathy because it has to do with, like, I'm going to give space for another person to speak. I'm going to listen to what they're saying. It's all about listening. So that's one way that I build empathy in my classes. I hope that helps. Oh, and then I just read that you asked right before I started telling. So I just gave you a whole lot more information. Isaac, you're saying, yes, the world can be an overwhelming place. It really is. And you're asking, what keeps you going when it seems the whole world is against you? The first thing I just felt was, ay, por Dios, why does it feel that way? And I want to thank you, Isaac, for asking that question. I struggle so much, and I think that because of my work, it's very public, and the way that I make a living is by sharing my work publicly, by streaming things online. It has to do with interacting with people, and that can be a struggle when we feel like the world is against us. And so the things that I turn to are like really basic tools. Like I started recently, I was experiencing a lot of stress, and I started doing morning pages, like just writing first thing in the morning. Like I was like, what's the easiest thing I can do that I know that helps me? And this doesn't work for everyone if you're like, you don't consider yourself that attracted to writing. But maybe it would be like stretching or yoga or something that makes you feel good in your body. But for me, it's like, oh, I can put my kettle on really fast, make some tea, come and sit at my desk and just put my pen down and not think about what I'm writing, just get my thoughts out. And that really helps. Another big part of my practice is, I say that officially, it is a part of my practice, but the thing that really helps me is hiking, going for walks. And I've been seeing on social media people posting about, like, now we have less sun, it's a good time to wake up earlier and work on your nighttime rituals. And so I've been trying to build that in because I'm a bit of a night owl. I work best at night, but in the winter in New England, I really struggle because it gets so dark here and so cold. So I'm working every day to catch a little bit more sun. Those are some practical things. But I do think that at the core of it, when we feel alone and when we are really struggling, we need family and we need connection, and we need sustenance. And this is why when I have, even when I don't have a lot, but when I have a little more than I need, I try to offer it out to community members, and I uh, also when I'm singing about oppression, anti-oppression in my songs, like that is my activism. That's my way to speak out against injustices. Um, when we feel the world is against us, it's often because we don't have adequate housing, or we don't have food on our tables, or we feel you know, something is not sustaining us, right? So this is where I think building empathy, building chosen family is so important, and checking in on one another is part of that empathy practice. When you have the capacity to do so, when your mental health allows, check in with people, and earnestly give them a space to tell you what's going on. Because it's a balancing act. It's like, we need it, I need it, you need it, we need like that support. Thank you for that question. I really appreciate it. What advice would you offer your 18-year-old self? Damn, y'all are asking some good questions. I feel like I'm getting going through another dissertation defense here. In a beautiful way, and like I'm like in a much more deep way than we have with dissertation defenses. But I do I appreciate the depth of the questions. Actually, I have a song for that. It's perfect. It was the next thing I was going to sing in my set. I have 2 more songs for you. And this song, it's a song that I wrote with a lot of love for my queer familia, queer and trans familia, and and love for myself. And it feels like a prayer. It feels like a love letter. And I think that when I was 18, I didn't know I was queer or genderqueer. I didn't even know at that time how to identify myself in a way that feels free to me. I'm of Mexican ancestry, and there was no learning about indigenous or African connections to that history growing up. In fact, those things are very much erased and hidden, and the colonized mindset is very much privileged. And so it took me learning outside of school about Chicana feminism, about women of color scholarship, about queer and trans scholarship. And I think this song for me holds a lot that's kind of delivering to the younger part of me, the part that knows that my blood family will not likely utter these words to me, but that I can offer this to myself, and that my chosen family offers me love. I'm going to do a quick check on my tuning, and then I'm going to sing this song for you. I'm glad you asked me lots of questions, because it gave my back a break from this heavy guitar. Okay, this is an answer to the advice I would offer my 18-year-old self. This is just a love song to my queer self, my queer familia. I love your queer hair. I love your queer mouth. I love the songs you write. I love the mountains you hike. You are a poet in the water. You are a stone with edges. You are
a familiar prayer. You are the sound of fire. Don't let them take you away from me. You heal the wounds of our mothers. You smash the rules of tyrants. You and your queer body. I love your queer smile. Don't let them take you away from me. Don't let them take you away from us. We want more queer music. We want more queer love. We want more queer justice. We want. I won't let them take me away from you. I won't let them take me away from us. I love my queer body. I love my queer hair. I love the songs I write. I love. That's a queer love song for you. Thank you for that question. Catherine says, I appreciate the word sustenance. We talk about needing to fuel our bodies and lives, and how thinking on it makes it more machine-centered. And sustenance feels more filling. Thank you. I really appreciate that you named that. It's so true. I really am thinking sustenance in the way that I like. We can say multimedia performance, right? But multisensory for me grounds me in my body. It grounds me in my senses. It grounds me in the fact that I'm a human that needs to eat, that needs to be loved, that needs to love. I have a body, right? And I feel like so much of my work is just reminding that. And I crave that from language as well. You know, like sustenance feels much more full, much more holistic and whole than just fuel. You know, like I'm not a car. So thank you for that, Catherine. This whole event is like a Tiny Desk concert. I love. Thank you, Jackson. Oh, thank you, Isaac. I really appreciate it. Feel free, if you have any other questions, send them my way. I love answering them. And I have one more song, but I will... what do I find essential at this time? One of the things that I find really essential... and I think I just realized it recently because it's very easy to feel as artists at this time, during this pandemic chaos, we've lost so much work, and then we've also gained it. We've also gained some nourishment and support. Before I finish answering this question, however, I need to change the battery on my camera. Otherwise, you'll lose me. So give me just like 2 minutes. I'm sorry to pause. Otherwise, the whole the camera will go away. I'm sorry about that.
While she is changing her battery, please, if folks have questions, Make sure that you're putting them on YouTube so that we can ask them. We only have Dr. Alvarez with us for 30 more minutes. I know I wish it would last much longer. I feel Jackson's comment of this feels like a tiny desk concert, and I feel really lucky and blessed to have this moment and time. So if you have questions, please pose them.
Okay, I'm back. Can you hear me okay? Is everything good? Okay. I was answering the question about what is essential at this time, and the thing that I find essential is art, is creativity, is working as an artist. So thank you for employing me as an independent artist. This is what sustains me. And I think what I was getting at is that in the process of losing so much work and being disconnected, just like we all have been, and worrying about health and just the capacity to move forward as an artist when it seems like the most impractical thing, coming together and having my work affirmed, and that's been happening more recently, especially this week. And I think it has really influenced me. It's really made me feel like, I returned to myself in some ways, but I also have transformed and moved to a different place at the same time. And we can hold those things at the same simultaneously. But I would say that it's just having my work affirmed and doing the thing that I'm meant to do, and having the place for it and finding energy for it. And so that is what is essential to me at this moment in time. And this is a good space to offer to you that there are ways to stay connected to my work. You can listen to it online. As I said, I've released 3 songs, 3 singles, and I'm going to be releasing the album hopefully by the end of the year of the songs, of some songs from my opera. And I also teach private voice lessons currently with anyone across the world on Zoom. And I found a way to make that feel really connected. It's not the same as in person, but I think there are benefits to being on Zoom that we didn't have in person. But those are ways that you can sustain my work. When there are so many things that work to separate us from our bodies and our bodily knowledge, what are some practices that help you feel, be in your body, and in a safe and joyful way? We all have different things, but for me, a shower is like a reset for me. If I'm having like a really bad day, just like that helps to connect me. I think because I'm a naturally cold person. And so if I am in warm water, that helps. But it's interesting because we talk about this and like, yes, we have to think about it. And it is part of our knowledge, but it's like the thing that I've been remembering is just don't think about it, just do the thing. Because I think as scholars, we're like, and anytime you're like learning to be a quote unquote good student, like you think about the thing before you do it, and that has a lot of value in our world. I'm not encouraging you to not think about things, but I think that when it comes to, there's certain things that we overthink, right? And it's like, if I feel wound up, like, okay, just step out, go for a walk, like just do the thing. I take the voice of my abuela, my grandmother, and I kind of coach myself in that way. But that's what, and also in my teaching, I'm very determined in my classes and in talks like this to really ground in the body, to remind one another, because that itself is creating a culture where we accept that, where we accept one another's bodies as crucial, essential life that we need to take care of, right? If we are only teaching in a way where we're mindset focused and we're not like grounded in our bodies, we're also creating a culture where, you know, when someone is disabled or someone is unable to perform a physical activity, then it's shamed or um, it's seen negatively, right? So we want to create a culture where we acknowledge that we have different bodily experiences. And that's why my teaching is the way it is, because it's in line with my ethics. Thank you for grounding us in our senses and reminding us of that import as creators, audiences, artists, and humans. Oh, thank you, Emily, for acknowledging that. Yeah, technology is the. Natasha, did you want to answer this question?
I can. So someone asked, what do you find exciting about this series of speakers? And honestly, it has been, last year was amazing to have people from all across the nation come talk about their work and share with us. And I'm so glad that you're here to kick it off this year with us. And it does
I'm
like
honored.
this, yeah, it's so beautiful. I think I'm leaving a bigger fan than I came in, and that's always a joy when you get to experience that. Um, yeah, I just find it exciting to see all the various many ways that people approach performance and theater and dance, and how everyone thinks about bodies and in space, and just all the connections that are made. And yeah, so the series is exciting for me in so many ways.
It is really exciting, and I love the mission of it, the statement moving it forward or driving it forward. I really appreciate that. I think that for fellow artists, it makes when we feel that purpose is there, it makes it so much more exciting. And it goes beyond, at least from my experience, it goes beyond just being like, I'm being booked to perform a few songs. Like, it feels like, no, we're doing this to dig into this topic, and also the engagement of people here. I want to thank you for that. Truly, truly thank you for it, because when you engage in this way in a virtual space, it keeps that mutuality, that sustenance that we were talking about going between artist and viewer. And one thing that I learned in the pandemic, that I was like sending so much energy out and it would fall flat in certain venues. So I appreciate your engagement. David, you share the last name with my grandfather, Barnett. How much do you perform publicly? What types of venues do you perform in? Currently, this year I've only done outdoor shows. The last one was a friend gathered us in a backyard, and I brought my PA and performed with my partner. But I also am very proud to say that I just got invited to be a formal showcase artist for New England Regional Folk Alliance, which hopefully will allow me to just share my work with presenters across New England and beyond, because I do love performing in music venues. Often I perform in all kinds of settings, in educational settings, in like higher ed. Colleges will book me for a performance. I did one last a virtual performance, which was so great, with the Latinx student organization with Illinois College, and they just found me online, which really warmed my heart. And so a lot of things are virtual right now, but prior to the pandemic, I was performing in music venues and festivals. If you have any ideas for that or places you want to see me, of course, write to me. My website is diana-alvarez.com. You can connect with me there. Jason, you say, I love your focus on empathy. What recharges you in order to give it so freely? I'm an introvert, so I have to shut down a little bit, even from people that I absolutely adore. I have to just, when I interact a lot with people, I have to recharge my battery. So, especially when I perform, I think it's kind of ironic and silly that I'm such an introvert, but that my purpose, included in my purpose, is performing, because it takes a lot out of me. I feel like I'm being my authentic, genuine human self with you, and silly and quirky and weird. Um, but once I shut the camera down and turn my lights off and my sound system off, then it's like I have to like regroup. But that's me. Some folks just like really love that energy, and I do love it. It's just needs a recharge. Yay! All right. Feel free to ask any other questions. I'm gonna perform one more song for you. Give me 1 second. I'm a very straightforward person, and I don't like sugarcoating things. So I often joke and laugh that, like, at the end of my set, I have a song that's called "Everything Ends," and it's just very, it's, it feels like a good way to. I think this song for me is about. Everything ends in terms of oppression, in terms of cycles of violence. They will end, and we are ending them. But also, it's a reminder to me that, like, everything in my life is not going to exist at some point. And as I mentioned earlier in this, I've been very close to death for a long time, meaning in terms of losing family early. And the learning that I have from that translates into my work. And this song is about that. It's about the fact that it's a reminder to be present. It's a reminder to work with one another with hands together. That's a quote from the song. So I'm going to translate the chorus for you. This is called Todo se acaba, means everything ends. And the chorus says, even your hatred, even the violence of your voice, even the thought that you have the right to this body, everything will end. In the song, I speak to my grandmother, I speak to my mother, who experienced cycles of violence and abuse in my family. I speak to future generations in my family. I speak to sisters who experience violence, and children. And I say we will fight with hands together. And so this is Todo se acaba. And for me, it's a reminder of snuffing out oppression in any way that we can, but also remembering that it starts with ourselves, that we have to end oppressive natures within ourselves and address them as well and be accountable. Okay.
Hasta el rencor, hasta la violencia de tu voz, hasta el pensamiento que tú tienes el derecho a este cuerpo. Todo se acabará. Toditito, 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 toditito. Ay, mamá, yo sé que tu lucha es para mí. Ay, abuela, Yo sé que te ahorcan casi todos los días, pero vamos a curar nuestras heridas. Toditito, 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 hasta el rencor, hasta la violencia de tu voz, hasta el pensamiento que tú tienes el derecho a este cuerpo. Todo se acabará. Toditito, 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 toditito. Ay, hermana, yo sé que nuestra soledad nos mata y las balas también. Ay, mi hija, yo sé que tienes miedo de hablar, pero juntas vamos a luchar con manos juntas. Toditito, 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 hasta el rencor, hasta la violencia de tu voz, hasta el pensamiento que tú tienes el derecho a este cuerpo. Todo se acabará. Todo, hasta el rencor, hasta la violencia de tu voz, hasta el racismo, tu maldito pendejismo. Todo se acabará.
Yay! That was Todo Se Acaba. I have, it's one of the fierce songs that I have. A few of these songs started off as anti-45 songs, or, protest songs. And then they've just grown into being so expansive in the ways that they address the world, to me anyway. Thunderous applause. Thank you so much. Any other questions for me about my practice or multisensory performance or things that you're wondering about as an artist? I do believe that one of my superpowers is to nudge other people toward their artistic practice. So if there's a thing that you want to be working on, I'd love to hear about it. What should we check out, do next? Is that for me? Yes. Okay. I would find a way to recenter yourself in whatever way that means to you. All of our bodies are different. And I hope that you have in this time together, I know it's clunky on virtual spaces, but I do hope that we have had some connection today, and I hope that you'll find some way to connect with yourself, and understanding maybe just even one more thing of something that you need in your life, whether it's you need to be journaling every day, or you need to be sketching or doing something for your creativity. That for me is what I think is incredibly important. I also think, I've mentioned before, chosen family, building family. I am always speaking in my classes, when we talk about love, we talk about consent, we talk about transformative justice or different concepts of justice. And I'm always pushing my students or participants in my workshop to think beyond what is the mainstream idea of a concept. So love, right? To go beyond just romantic love. When talking about consent, to go beyond the typical, I mean, consent is important in all aspects of our life, but to understand consent broadly and expansively in our world. And I think when we think about family, we need that same expansiveness. We need to think about family as chosen family. We need to think about building family as building connections and empathy with our colleagues, with our friends, with people that we're not in contact with every day necessarily, but that we care about. And I think, you know, this work is much deeper than like, oh, let's just all get together. And, you know, it feels, sometimes I feel like I am just saying, let's have a meal together. But I also think it's a very deep process. And I think that we really need it in our world. When I think about, like, throw my hands up in the air as somebody who cares so much about liberation and justice. And I think it really starts with collaboration. It starts with connection. And so we do that in small ways every day. And I hope you'll find a way to do that for yourself and for your community. Of course. What am I reading, watching right now? I just saw a person who was very influential to my dissertation on the cover of Time magazine, Kathy Park Hong. She wrote Delusions, I think it's Delusions of the Avant-Garde. I think there's more to the title than I'm saying, but it's actually right here. I got so happy when I saw her on the cover because I knew of Kathy Park Hong because she taught at Sarah Lawrence, where I did my MFA in poetry, and then when I was doing my doctorate, she published this article. Actually, it might be Delusions of Whiteness in the Avant-Garde or something. It's about delusions, and it's about how the avant-garde in poetry specifically thinks it's so experimental, but it's appropriating work from people of the global majority, and at the end she just says, like, we need to hew our own path. And I used that work a lot in my dissertation. But also on on Netflix, I watch things like Sabrina. I watch things like my friend introduced me to the show 227, which is about an apartment complex. It was made in the early 80s. I only watch things that calm me down. If something activates me, it's like too much. So that's when I'm watching something, I try to do, because I think in my everyday world as an artist and scholar, there's so much thinking going on that I'm always trying to relax the brain. Any other questions for me? Any other thoughts? Things you're working on? It's been a pleasure to be here with you today. I'm happy to answer anything that comes up, or, if you want to write to me, feel free to. My email is diana@diana-alvarez.com. My website is diana-alvarez.com. You can listen to me online. I actually do have one. I'm going to be teaching a workshop with UMass Amherst on multisensory performance and acts of kinship on November 6th, and I'll have an evening concert, and it's virtual. So if you follow me on Instagram, that's the best place to hear about my work. The handle is Bruja Juana, BRUJAJUANA. Juana. And I post on Instagram when I have a show coming up, and I will get better at posting it on my website. That's very important too.
And for folks who have access to the CW Theater page where you found information to be here today, we also have your website and links there so they can access there and go directly to your stuff. So
thank you.
Yes. And I just want you to know, like, I'm getting messages from people, text messages, Facebook messages about how much they're enjoying and appreciating everything that you've brought here for us today.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. It's been such a pleasure to share my work and have it, have you very much engage with it. It means a lot.
It means so much to us. I think a lot of us are seeing things we're thinking about. And right, like you're talking about being in our bodies, you're talking about consent, right, conversations, empathy, things that we have been talking about. I think you have just beautifully, gorgeously laid it out for us today, and offered us some new language and ways of thinking about it. So thank you so much.
Of course, my pleasure. Oh, Michael, thank you. I'm going to read this one out loud, folks, because it's so beautiful. Your music is lovely, your voice is exquisite, your heart is generous, and your holistic approach to life and love are inspiring. Thank you. Thank you, Michael, for affirming that for me. I think I feel the most at home when I'm in spaces like this, when we're sharing our work. Yes, I'm excited to see who else will be. I know that I was kicking it off, but I'm curious. I'm going to check out the website to see who else is part of the series. I can't emphasize enough. I feel like I have to keep reminding people about Sharon Bridgeforth. Because if you appreciate my work, so much of it is descended from working with Sharon, experiencing, documenting Sharon's work. Also, Magdalena Gomez is a mentor and dear sibling sister of mine, who is performance playwright and performance poet and playwright, but those things don't really sum up the expansiveness of who she is. And when I'm creating, when I'm performing, I often am checking in, like, how would Magdalena embody this in their fullest, most fierce sense? And that often bolsters me. So those are people that I highly, I really encourage you to check out their work.
I forgot about our interesting connections, because Omi, Dr. Jones, was actually at UT where I learned from her. And to know that there are those connections and not even realize them is really cool.
See, I told you we knew each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And Omi's work with performance ethnography and just, the ways in which she approaches that is totally different than how anthropology would have us think about ethnography, right? So thank you for sharing Sharon's work and other people's work that we can look to and find more examples from.
Sharon is a part of both Sharon and Magdalena, as well as two other artists, Nicole M. Young, dear friend of mine, beautiful artist, and Vic Quesada, another amazing artist. These are the four people who I initially documented to be a part of my opera. So Sharon has a documentary video portrait in it, and so does Magdalena Gomez. I've learned so much from them, and working with them transformed the piece in itself. Every artist you work with is going to transform the thing for you. And it that's the thing about art. It requires us to be light on our feet in some ways, because we kind of have to move with things. So yeah, I'm very grateful for them.
I think we are nearing the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say again, thank you so much for being here. And thank you to all of the audience who was here, and hopefully all the people who will tune in later will get to experience your beautiful work. Our next event, if you're also interested, Diana, is
Yes.
November 12th. It's another Friday. And we will have playwright Jesus Velez and director Rudy Ramirez here to talk about their works on a play that they did called Undocumented. And so they've done some really powerful work together in Texas, in Austin.
Wonderful.
And so they'll be here to talk about their work together. So you're welcome to join us.
Thank you. That
Yes.
sounds wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It has been such a pleasure to be here with you all. And I appreciate the space to share my work.